Hi guys, my name is Rachel Colant. I am a Wahl brand ambassador, and today I'm going to show you guys how to groom a Cavapoo puppy. This is Zuma. This is her second haircut ever. So before I start any trimming, especially on the paw pads, I want to, one, make sure my dog is fully brushed and combed, and she is. And then I want to do the nails before I start trimming on the pad. So I'm going to take my nail trimmers and gently lift her foot. I gave her a heads up before I grabbed her foot so that, you know, she knows what to expect. I'm moving the hair away from the nail so that I can see what I'm doing. And then I want to take my nail trimmers and I just am going to take a little bit off at a time. I don't know how she's going to react. She's perfect. This is not necessarily what you're gonna see on every dog, but I'm just gonna take a tiny bit off at a time to make sure that I'm not gonna get close to her quick or the vein and nerve in the center of the nail. So when you look at the nail from the side, usually the part that starts to change shape around here is gonna be the part that you're gonna trim. If the dog has a light colored nail, you can see the area that has a blood vessel and then the area that doesn't. I'm just gonna trim just a tiny bit. When you see this spot, the darker spot in the center of the nail, that's as far as you want to go. And I'm going to repeat that for all the front nails. And she also has a dew claw. One of the most important things is just to make sure that you're clearing the hair out of the way so you can see what you're doing. Her nails are still pretty jagged, so I'm gonna take the Wahl Flexion and file them down a little bit. So since she's a puppy, she's really new to this, I wanna give her opportunities to like sniff the tool and explore what I'm doing. She's probably gonna be a little bit unsure, so I'm just gonna work with her and make sure that she's comfortable with this. And then keep going. And I'm just smoothing the sharp edges from the area that I trimmed. Good girl. And that's it. Good girl. Okay, now because I was just messing up her hair and handling her a lot, I want to just make sure that I run a comb over her coat one more time to make sure there's no tangles that are going to get snagged, because I'm about to start my clipper work. Because she's a puppy and she's not used to this process, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, I like to use this clipper on every dog for like any opportunity that I can, but I really love using a 5-in-1 clipper for a puppy. It's really quiet. It's gonna be a lot less intimidating for them to get used to the grooming process with a tool that's a lot smaller and it's quieter and it's easy to move this around the shape of the dog's body instead of moving the dog to work with my clipper. So I'm gonna do the whole haircut with this Wahl Bravura, and I'm gonna use the guard comb set. These do not come with a clipper, you buy them separately, but this is like my just absolute holy grail, can't live without it, my favorite Wahl product. After her nails are done, I want to do her pads and Sanitary. For the Sanitary, I'm going to use the 5-in-1 on a 9 setting. Since she's a puppy, she's not used to having those areas shaved yet. I want to use as long a length as possible. That's still going to keep her clean. Gently lifting her tail. I'm on the 9, giving her a second to figure out what's happening, and then I'm just going to hold the clipper flat and move straight across. I want to make sure that the blade is not touching the skin. I'm only focusing on the hair, and she's exploring, like, which is fine with me. I don't want to fight her for this process. She's going to be curious and I need to just work with her. While I'm back here, I'm going to get this area as well. And I just want to clear this out a little bit. I don't want to make it bald. So this is really like what the Sanitary is gonna look like from the back when you're done, just a little. I'm gonna do the belly Sanitary as well. I'm lifting her and I'm gonna use my 9 and gently scooping Again, I'm making sure that I'm not scraping the blade on the skin because this skin is very sensitive in this area. For her pads, I'm gonna use the Vetiver Mini. This is honestly even quieter than the Bravura. And this is a super, super short blade. It's I think a 45. And it's gonna give us a really close cut. And because it's so short, I don't want to scoop into the pad. I wanna just use this to trim the hair that's covering her feet, her pads. I'm not scooping in, I'm just sliding this across her pads. I want to leave a little bit of hair in there because it helps protect them from the elements, but I don't want her to not have traction on the floor or for there to be mats or tangles in there. And if you don't have a Vetiver, you can totally still use your 5-in-1 clipper on a 40 setting. So we're gonna go all the way over to the right. I'm lifting her foot. I'm not flipping it all the way up. I'm holding it parallel. And what I'm gonna do is just skim straight across her pads and skim all the way off the sides. This is gonna set the rounded shape of my foot. And this is gonna help keep her clean, prevent matting, and it's gonna give us a nice, cute, round foot. I don't want to aggressively scoop in between these pads because I want a little bit of hair in here to protect the dog from the elements. If they're walking on hot surfaces, if they're walking on rocks, this hair is necessary, but we don't want to leave it too long to potentially be causing irritation, matting, or discomfort. So this is really what I want my pad to look like when I'm done. I don't want anything hanging over the sides of the foot, nice and clean, but not too short. And I'm just gonna repeat the process on the front pads as well, but I just wanna keep in mind that what I'm doing during this grooming process is setting her up for how she feels about grooming for the rest of her life. It's okay. She wants to sit and it's not affecting what I'm doing. I'm just gonna let her sit down. If it makes her feel more comfortable and it doesn't affect what my haircut's gonna look like, I'm totally fine with it. When she starts pulling away, that's when I'm gonna redirect her. This is just like me going over my work real fast. Okay, so now that we're on the body haircut, I'm going to use my Bravura on a 40 setting, so the shortest length, with a 1 guard comb, which is 1/2 inch or 13 millimeters. And I'm just gonna slide it on and we're ready to go. So I'm gonna do a guard comb length on the body, the 1 guard comb. I'm gonna do the legs a little bit longer. Whether I do a guard comb on the legs or scissor them, it's just gonna depend on how she responds to the clipper, but we're gonna go ahead and get started on the body. I'm going all the way up to, oh, she wasn't sure about that. She's never, she's not really familiar with this. Going all the way up to the back of the head. And my first stroke with the clipper is always gonna be right down the center of the back. And on puppies, on dogs in general, I like to just go straight off of the top line, the top of the dog. And I don't like to take the clipper and follow it down and take the top of this tail off because it makes the dogs look like they're trying to go potty. So I like to make this straight. I do that by just going straight off the back instead of scooping down. I want to get the line around the dog's head really defined, so everything that falls behind the bump on the back of the dog's ear, all this stuff is going to get clippered, and that's what I'm going to focus on right now. She's getting sleepy, which I'm happy about because that means she's not going to be fighting with me. But I do need to get this clipper work done. So I'm pulling the ear forward just slightly, and I'm just clearing out that hair. I need her to stand up for this part, so when I leave the legs fuller, I want to clip her off the widest part of the muscle of her thigh and her shoulder. And in order to see where that is, I need her to be standing. And I really do prefer if she's in a natural position. So I'm just holding her head forward, finding that widest part of the dog's shoulder and just skimming straight down. Clippering off the side. I want to avoid pinching this armpit because I want like a cute teddy bear leg. So moving this leg forward while I get the underline. And I'm using my clippers slowly. I'm not clipping very quickly. The clipper does the cutting by this blade moving back and forth and trimming the hair. If I'm moving my clipper too quickly, you're gonna end up with lines or uneven haircut. So you need to make sure that you're clippering slowly enough that your clipper can keep up with trimming the hair. So for the front of this leg, I'm just skimming because I want this to blend in. So I'm using full, lighter pressure as I go. So when I get to the blending of the back leg, I want to find where the tail is, and I'm going to avoid clipping any hair that goes into the tail. Once I have that imaginary line in my head, I know I can clipper everything that falls past that. And then I want to find the widest part of the thigh muscle, and I'm just skimming straight down to the ground because when I'm finished with this, I want this leg to be a parallel line. And then I'm going to come around to the back. I want to just take this area, basically all the stuff that the dog sits on. This is called the rear angulation. So I want to give the dog like the illusion of having a strong back leg and shorten the body. So, because dogs who look more square are cute to like a person's eye. So to make the dog look square, this is tight and this is tight in the front. And to do that, all of the hair that goes from the butt bone to where your finger hits the bend of the back of the knee, this stuff we clipper short. And once I get to that point of the bend, I scoop out a little bit and create a semicircle shape. This area is called the tuck up, and this is another thing that makes the dog look more square and makes them look cuter. So there's a flap of skin right here, and from the dog's last rib to the front of their back leg, this is our tuck up area, and we want to create a half moon shape that goes into the front of the back leg. So all this stuff up here can come, but I want to leave a curtain of hair down here. And this is the area I'm clipping to. When I'm doing the belly, I go fully with my clipper, take this length short to the last rib. And then this part I leave because I want this to be a half moon shape from the shortest point here, half moon into the front of this back leg. Now I want to continue my line that I set on the bulb of the back of the ear to where the neck and head meet, and set in this front angulation. I want it to match this little angulation that we did in the back. So all the hair below where the neck and the head meet, all this stuff I don't need. I'm gonna clip her all the way up to that line. Right now I'm just trying to focus on the chest area. But when I come to the front shoulder, I want to set the shoulder underneath just a little bit. So basically where the front arm bends and meets the chest, I want to do just a little scoop right there. And you can look from the front and see this line, and I'm just gonna get this armpit. I'm lifting her front leg forward, I'm giving her a second, and then I'm just gonna scoop that hair out. When I look at the dog from the front, I want a defined line underneath that separates my head shape from the body. And you can see the front angulation, this little scoop, it's just a tiny bit that helps set this front leg underneath their shoulder. So that's it for this length with the clipper on her body, and now I'm gonna switch to a guard comb for her legs. I'm gonna use a C guard comb for the legs. This is a 7/8 or 22 millimeter guard comb. And it's gonna leave like a beautiful fluffy leg that we're just gonna lightly shape with scissors after. But it's gonna be a good way to set my length. When you're doing a long guard comb, especially on a really soft coat like this, it is so important to make sure that the coat is fully combed, because if you snag a tangled spot with a guard comb, you're gonna make a hole. And so I'm just triple, quadruple checking that she doesn't have any tangles before I go over this with a long guard comb. Giving her a little heads up. And then I'm clipping really slowly with my guard, making sure that I give the clipper enough time to actually cut the hair. Once I get to around the ankle, I want to lift and straighten her leg, so that I'm making sure that I'm always hitting and cutting the hair with the same position of my clipper. That way I'm not gonna get any short spots or harsh lines with my guard comb. And I'm clippering all the way down the foot with my guard comb. I'm also making sure that I'm paying attention to my handling when this is happening. Whenever I'm moving her or moving her legs, I'm paying attention to if she's comfortable or not. I'm making sure that I'm focusing on her needs and not just getting super in the zone with what I'm doing with the haircut, because I want to make sure that she's not uncomfortable or I'm not holding her leg in an unnatural position. And the guard comb is just setting my length. I'm gonna tidy this, just like quickly go over it with some thinning shears or shears afterwards to make sure that I have a perfectly smooth blended finish. But I'm really happy with this length, and the length's been set, so I'm gonna move on. And just like lifting the back leg to make sure I can get a full stroke with my clipper so that I don't get any lines. For the front of this front leg, I'm gonna pick up this foot and hold it just straight back in the same natural movement of where she would walk, and getting this front angle so that I don't get a harsh line right at this spot where the arm goes into the chest. Once I've done that front clipper work, I want to just do my best to keep her leg as natural as possible, supporting as much as I can with my hand while I keep her leg straight and just clip her the excess hair. She's not super used to this, so I really just want to pay attention to her signs that she's communicating with me. Like, hey, I don't know what you're doing. Hey, I need to figure out what you're doing so that I'm comfortable with it, because I don't want to traumatize her and make her difficult for grooming by not listening to how she's communicating with me. She's so sleepy. So the length is set on this leg with the clipper. I'm still gonna go over it with scissors, but I'm just gonna repeat all of my clipper work on the other side. Okay, so clipper work is all done on the body. All that's left to do is scissor work. We're gonna round the feet, just tidy the legs a little bit, and then we're gonna do the whole face, which is the best part. Okay, so when I trim the feet, I want a cute round foot. I don't want it to be too narrow on the sides, and I don't really want to expose the nails. So what I start with is trimming everything that falls over the pad. And I set this line earlier. I started to set it for myself with my clipper work. When I used my 40 blade earlier to skim straight off, that makes it easier for me to see when I go back in with my shears. So I'm gonna lift and trim everything that's gonna fall over the foot and then put the foot down. So when I look from the side, I have this nice lift and there's not gonna be any hair that's gonna be dragging on the floor. And that's how I know if I've trimmed enough. So step 2, for the foot, I'm gonna find where the nails are. I'm gonna use my shears to scoop underneath and trim straight across the front of the foot with my shears at a 45-degree angle. Not flat and not straight up and down, we're in between. And I just wanna trim that straight across. Now that I have the front and the back set, I'm basically just gonna connect the sides in a cute circular shape. So I'm gonna slide my shears still at that 45-degree angle from my line in the back. And I'm just gonna cut straight towards the toe. And I like to give myself a square shape and then I round this edge with thinning shears or a little bit of a softer shear so that I have a nice natural finish. And I'm just doing the same thing on the other side. And I'm just making sure that I'm getting everything that would touch the ground. And I know that this is a puppy, so I'm anticipating that she's gonna be sensitive and she's gonna move her feet a lot. So I'm ready to pull my shear away just to make sure that we don't accidentally cut her. Now I'm taking thinning shears. These are blending shears, they're very fine, and just softening the edges of my shape. I want to make sure that she's standing with her foot in a natural position when I trim this. And that's just going to ensure that I get a cute shape no matter if she's standing, laying down, or moving. I'm looking at my shape from the side and I just want to make sure that it's lifted. So I'm just following my line up from the pad. And now I have a nice cute, round, soft foot. I do the foot before I shape the leg because I need a reference point. I have my reference point up here, which is the widest part of the thigh muscle, and I need a reference point down at the foot to make sure that I can make a straight line. My third step is going to be setting this front line, so setting my tuck up, and then everything else I'm just going to tidy a little bit if there's a spot that I need to blend a little bit more with some thinning shears. So now I'm gonna make this little half moon shape. My shortest point is gonna be right behind the last rib, and I'm just gonna make a half moon shape into this leg. I can just use the shape of these curved shears to set this shape for me. And I don't need to leave a lot of hair. It's just a tiny bit to give the illusion that the space between this leg and this leg is shorter. Once the tuck up's done, then I can start shaping the rest of the leg. I like the shape the way that it is now, but there's gonna be spots that are a little bit longer or a little uneven. This dog has really, really fine hair because she's a baby, and you have to just go over it with a pair of thinning shears to make sure that your finish is smooth. So I combed up with a fine comb, and all I'm doing is looking at this line, and if there's any hairs that fall outside of my parallel shape, I just take my thinning shears and just tuck it in a little bit so that this is straight. So I love the way that the back leg looks. I set my length with my guard comb and I just tidied it with thinning shears to make sure my finish is where I wanted it to be. So now I'm gonna move on to the front leg, and I'm gonna repeat my same process where I just trim the back of the foot first, anything that would fall over the pad. I can see my line when I set the foot down. And if this is still heavy, if you can't see a line going up this way when you set the foot down, just keep trimming. And again, she's a puppy, so I'm gonna anticipate that she's not super comfortable with her feet being trimmed. It's probably ticklish. I like to only trim the dog's feet when they're standing because the shape of the foot is different when they're bearing weight and when they're not. But sometimes with puppies or with dogs who are really sensitive, you have to just adapt. So sometimes I lift the foot and trim it, but only after I've looked at the shape with the foot on the table. I trimmed the back and now I'm gonna trim the front, scooping from underneath straight across the front of the foot. And then I'm just gonna connect the sides with the back. But she's super ticklish on this foot. So I'm just gonna see how I can work around this. If we lift the opposite foot and go from the back, there we go. And then I need to go from the back on the outside. And I'm just anticipating that she's gonna be moving. I'm looking from a low angle to make sure that I can see that everything that would touch the ground is off the ground. In a perfect world, I would have liked to do a tiny bit more shaping with my curved shears, but she's super sensitive, so I'm just gonna switch to thinning shears, see what she lets me get with her foot natural. It seems like this inside spot is really sensitive for her, so I'm looking at what I need to trim. I'm gonna lift up her foot and just lightly shape it with my thinners. And I'm kind of rolling around. I'm not cutting a lot in one area. I'm trimming a bit and moving on. And after I've done one good go around the foot, I'm gonna make her stand and check my work. When I look from the front, I can see the foot is still a little bit wide. This isn't quite parallel yet. So I'm gonna memorize again and then lift the leg and trim. Switching to a slightly more aggressive pair of thinning shears so I can take more length off at once. And I just want to check for areas that maybe have pieces that are a little bit longer from my clipper work or any areas that fall outside of my parallel line. I'm just gonna lift, take my thinning shears, give her a second. And just soften my shape. So again, she's more comfortable when she's standing on me, that's okay. Just gonna trim what I can, then we'll put her down and see what it looks like. I wanna clean up the line on the inside of the leg just a little bit more. And I'm trying as much as I can. I don't wanna cross cut. I wanna make sure that my shears are in the same position as the hair grows. And that's gonna make sure that I'm not leaving a chop mark and I'm blending as I go. The front of the leg is even and rounded. Now I'm gonna check the back of the leg. And we did clipper it already, so again, I'm not changing the length at all. The length is already set by my guard comb. All I'm doing is softening and blending and making sure that the finish looks nice. Now I want to look from the front, compare my shapes, make sure both feet look as close as I can. Now we have a cute parallel leg. Before I work on the head, I want to finish the tail because if I work on the head first, I almost certainly will forget to do the tail. And if you're a dog groomer watching this, I know that you feel me. So I like for this to be straight when I look at the dog from the side. So I'm going to take a fine comb and just fluff this stuff up. And if there's any hair that's outside of my straight shape, I'm just gonna lightly thin it. This hair is super fine. I don't want to take a lot of length off because it's still growing out. She's a puppy, but there are spots that are a lot shorter, like right here. And I just wanna make this a nice uniform shape. So the spots that go from long to short, I'm just gonna take my thinning shears and lightly blend those. And when I lift the tail, I want to make sure that there's nothing that's, when I look at the dog from the side, I don't want any hair that's hanging down and gonna cover this line. So this stuff, I just need to make sure there's nothing hanging from the underside of the tail. Once the top of the tail and the underside are done, then I can move further down and just get these wispy ends, and I'm just lightly thinning to tuck them into my shape. And the last thing I want to do is this line underneath, and I'm just taking off all of like the scraggly looking ends of the hair. Combing, taking my thinners, and just taking off those little wispy tips. And then I want to make sure that my shape from this way and this way both look nice. Just making sure that the tip of the tail is even. Last but not least, the very best part of the haircut is going to be revealing this precious little face. I'm using an ultrafine comb to just make sure that there's no tangles, that all of this hair is lifted and in the position where I want it to be. I don't want to comb it in an unnatural direction. I want to try to keep it where it's naturally going to lay. It's combed, and now I want to clear out the eyes. I'm going to use my bravura on a 9, the longest setting, and I'm going to give her a second because she's probably never had this done before. And I'm just going to focus on basically like a pinky width in between, right in between the eyes. And then I'm just going to gently rock just a little bit right in between the eyes. I can take a little bit more. I'm using a light touch, and I'm anticipating that she might get scared and move, so I'm ready to pull away with my clipper if I need to. That's pretty much all the clipper work that I'm going to do on the face. Next, I'm going to trim this hair right above her eyelashes. I don't want to trim all of this hair. I want to just get just basically the hair that's on the dog's eyelid, and that's going to be my shortest layer. I'm taking the blade of my shear in between the lashes, and I'm just kind of cutting with the angle of my curved shear about 1 centimeter past the corner of the eye. And you can already see just that one snip has made a difference in seeing the dog's eye. I want to be able to see the dog's eyeball when I look at the dog from the side view. And that's basically how you determine whether you've trimmed enough. If you can see the dog's eye from the side, you're good. This side, we can't see the dog's eyeball from the side, and this side, we can. So I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. And this gives me a good reference point on the face, this visor. My reference points for the face are going to be this lip line, the eyes, and then the back of the ear canal. So I'm still working on this. And my reference points are what help me determine what length to leave things. So I'm not going to use a clipper, like a guard comb, to set the length on the top of this dog's head, but I am going to make sure that the hair that I leave is balanced based on the reference points. And what I'm doing now is just trimming the hair above that first line that I set with a very fine pair of thinning shears. I'm just sweeping it back, and I'm trying to focus on not cutting hair that's below this corner of the eye. So I don't want to trim this. I'm only focusing on this. My second layer of the visor is basically going to be this corner of the eye to this corner of the eye, and it's this little U shape right here. So what I want to do is make a U shape with this hair. I don't want to comb all this hair, because if I pulled this hair forward and trimmed it short, I would have a short spot in the middle of the head. So I'm just focusing on this visor area. So once I have that visor done, I'm gonna move to my next reference point, which is gonna be this lip line. Basically just from the corner of the nose to the corner of the nose. I just wanna trim any hair that would hang into the mouth. And then that way I can see this from the side. My third reference point is gonna be everything that falls behind the bulb of the ear. So this part that we clippered to earlier, everything below the ear canal, all this stuff, that's gonna be the back of our jawline. So I'm gonna switch to a more aggressive thinner, and I'm just gonna cut straight up and down to the back corner of the ear canal. Everything right underneath the ear canal, all that stuff is just gonna get earwax, it's gonna get dirty, could get matted. We don't need it, it's not part of the shape of our face. Once I have this line and this line, I know that I just need to connect this. My next step is gonna be combing all the hair on the chin down, and the next line that we set by clippering up to where the jaw and the head meet, all of the face hair that falls beyond that line, I just trim that straight across. So now I have this corner here. So all this stuff, we just want to go straight across. Everything that hangs past our clipper line on the neck. That's why it's so important to get this really, really intentionally set with your clipper, because it makes your lines a lot easier to set on the face. And now, to make a round face, I know that this is going to be lifted into a rounded shape. I can just take this edge off lightly. So this is lifted up into the mouth, this is lifted up into the back of the ear, and then I just want a straight line between those 2 points when you look at it from this side. So I'm going to take my shears, these are thinning shears, and I'm just going to cut at a 45-degree angle a straight line between these 2 points. She's a baby, she's new to this, she's been tolerating a lot. These shears are a little bit louder than these shears, so I'm gonna switch and see if this is better for her. She comes right back to me, so I'm trying to just work with her. But basically I want a straight line, lift, lift. And she's a puppy. Like, this might not be the most perfect haircut, but that's okay, because I want to just focus on making sure that she has a good experience. After this, I have my straight lift, lift. Then I'm going to focus on this shape. This angle is straight. The roundness comes from this lift. So I'm going to take fine thinning shears and just cut up and around to get a nice round side of the head. I want round, round. When I look from the front, I want lift, lift. But this is straight here. When I look from the top, between the roundness here and the roundness back here, this is straight. So I'm not going for like a perfect circle, I'm going for an oval. And again, just anticipating, like, she's not gonna stay perfectly still for this, it's okay. we've got this long curl here. I just want to kind of sweep it back. I don't want to cut it fully at one time because then I'll have a short spot. So I just want to use my thinners to soften it and keep checking to see how it looks. So this is a straight line now. I want to work on incorporating the stuff that I've already trimmed into the top of the head. So I'm going to take curved thinners now and use the shape of these to set the shape and roundness of the top of my head. After I have this spot trimmed, I'm gonna flip the ear back so that I can look at this whole top of the head as one shape. And I'm just using the shape of these curved shears. I'm moving them in a straight line, and the shape of them is setting the round shape of my head. Just want to make sure there's nothing hanging behind the back of the ear. And I just want to keep combing to check my work and make sure that the finish is going to be even, that when the dog shakes her head, we're not going to have a long piece that pops out. And she's getting more comfortable. She's relaxing a little bit more. If she wants to lay down, that's okay. I'm gonna move around, because if this is gonna make my job easier, that's fine, she can lay down. So I'm just taking fine thinning shears and just softening and blending my shape that I've already set, and making sure I'm looking at my shapes from multiple angles. When I look at the top of the head, try to get a slight V shape so that you can see that the ear is separate from the head. And then when I look from the side, I want to separate the shape of my ear from my head. So this will be a shape and this is separate. So I'm just gonna keep working at setting my shape, getting my finish. And one of the big things is just combing to make sure that your shape's even. I kind of moved away from this area earlier before I was fully finished because she was flinching a lot. I like to sweep this area back to soften it and blend. Okay, so the last thing I want to do is the ear. And the ear is already really cute. All that I want to do is take, this shape is long and drawn down, so I'm just going to take the length off of this middle part. Her ear leather ends all the way up here. Normally I would want to keep the ear natural. I don't want to risk cutting her. So I'm just going to hold it, and I'm going to set my length by cutting straight across at the shortest point. And just like the sides of the face, I want the front and the back lifted and the middle part straight. So I've set my short straight part in the middle, and then I'm just gonna lift the back and then lift the front. Normally I would try to keep her ear in a natural position, but I'm gonna memorize the little spot that I need to round and move her ear just for her safety. And just round, lightly round this front of the ear. Now that there's some weight off of that ear and it's hanging back a little bit more, I can really see this line better. I'm just tidying it, looking from the top and the front to make sure that my shapes are incorporated together and where I want them to be. Now when I look at the dog from the side, I have lifted muzzle into a round top of the head, And I have a separate cute round ear. Now I'm just gonna repeat the same thing on the other side. You're all done, you're all done.